You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome to this installment of Thank You for Your Service. My name is Tom Heiser, and I will be your host. Today we will be talking with Joe Welling, who was in the U.S. Air Force, spending some time during his tour in Korea. Joe, thank you for your service.
Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome. Okay, getting to know you a little bit. Let's talk about your early life. Where were you born, and where did you live when you grew up?
I was born in Battle Creek, Michigan, the Cereal City, January 8th, 1932.
Okay.
That makes me 86.
Well, congratulations for being 86. Did you attend school in Battle Creek, Michigan?
No, I was on the farm. Dad had a farm, and he was also a barefoot paper maker in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And Mother was a nurse there at the hospital where I was born.
Okay.
In Battle Creek.
So is that where you went to high school also?
I went to grade in high school at Galesburg, Michigan.
Okay.
About 10 miles east of Kalamazoo. And then I went to Western Michigan College for a year and a half before I joined the Air Force.
Okay. What were you planning on studying in college, Joe?
I thought I may have wanted to be a teacher.
Okay.
Math and chemistry.
Okay. So you said a year and a half in college. That was in the early 50s or late 40s time frame?
That was 49 and 50.
Okay. So then the Korean War started in June of 1950.
Yes,
And you decided to go in the Air Force.
right.
Why the Air Force? Why not some other branch?
When I was a kid on the farm and 10, 12 years old, I'd see the airplanes from Kellogg Field, Battle Creek, practicing. And also the ground troops were on their marches past the holes. Well, the ground troops, they'd show us their blisters and how thirsty they were, and they still had the 7 miles back to Camp Custer. And I see the airplanes, and I thought I'd like to fly sometime or other. So I decided that the Air Force would be the one, and I got to fly. I knew I wouldn't be a pilot or anything like that because I didn't have the education that far.
So you went down to the recruiter and said, I want to join the Air Force, and he signed you up.
Right, I had talked to him a couple weeks before. Their recruiting Air Force was just a couple of doors down from where I worked part-time at Spiegel JNR in Kalamazoo.
Okay.
So then a couple of buddies said they were going to sign up, and the college said they'd give me full credit for the semester. So I signed up on my 19th birthday.
Okay. So you signed up. Where did you go for your basic training, Joe?
We went to Lackland, San Antonio, Texas. But they had such an influx of new people, volunteers in the Air Force, that they were putting them in tents. So I didn't report back to Detroit, where we took the train from, until for 2 weeks after I enlisted.
Okay. So what was your biggest motivation and why you wanted to join the military?
I think as a kid, with the war going on and that, and the scrap collections we'd have at school and stuff, I had a patriotism. And I don't know, college was a little iffy around then, so I thought I'd try something else for a while.
Okay.
So the Air Force is it.
You mentioned a couple of friends said they were going to go in with you. Did they, or did they chicken out?
They went with,
They went with you.
yeah, Skeet Raymond. He was in the basic group with me. And then when I got to Korea, he was in the bomb sight shop. And his barracks was only 2 doors from me, and we spent a lot of time together and took a couple of R&Rs to Tokyo. And then when I got back to the States, and I went to a couple of schools after, and then was at San Rafael, California, Hamilton Air Base. And he was across the bay at Vallejo March Air Force Base. So we'd get together then some weekends and little trips around too.
Okay. So you enlist and you get to basic training. Did you think basic training was going to be the way it was, or was it a little harder, a little easier?
It wasn't too bad. I volunteered to be a barracks guard. So I got out of some of the Burma Road running and KP duties.
So it was
Do that.
So it was good to volunteer once.
The drill sergeant and squadron, it was no problem at all.
Okay. So volunteering saved you. A lot of times volunteering doesn't.
Right.
Okay. So you're down at basic training. What do you remember about boot camp?
Well, the exercises, and we were honor squadron then, so we got to be ushers at the San Antonio Rodeo one night. And that was good to get away from the base for a while. And then we did have a weekend where we could get off base, so we went to see the Alamo and the other things at San Antonio. You're out.
So you're in basic training, you're away from the family. Nervous?
No.
Scared?
No. Skeet and Larry was there in a tent and otherwise. But no, writing letters home and getting them back. Letters.
So you said you were a guard for a while. Barracks
Yes.
guard. And the drill instructors didn't really mess with you that much, did they?
No.
Pretty good then.
Yes.
Okay. So now you're done with basic training. You graduated there. Then where did you go to school?
We went to Lowry Air Force Base at Denver. And a 17-week turret systems and basics for the 50 caliber turrets and B-29s and B-26s. And, after that, some of the guys went out east for gunnery school on the B-26, Norfolk, Virginia. And some of us stayed at Lowry and had B-29 aerial gunnery school and flights in the B-29 at the different stations in it, and then we'd take pictures of the jets coming at us.
So you were a gunner, basically.
part of the time.
Okay. The other part of the time, what were you doing?
Well, when I got done at Randolph, we went from Lowry down to Randolph Air Base, back down by San Antonio for B-29 crew more training, and they grounded some of us. So then for Christmas '51, I went home, and I figured I was going to Korea then. So I went to Skeet's folks' house and said, maybe I'll see Skeet in Korea. Well, then I did see him. I hadn't been in my barracks very long, and he came over. And we were in the same squadron. So then I was in Korea.
And what plane were you assigned to?
We had B-26s, 2-engine. It had been used at the end of World War II, and it was the fastest bomber that the Air Force had. And
So where were you stationed in Korea?
I was at K8 Kunsan, and that's on about the 35th parallel, and about 150 miles south of Seoul. And we mainly, our bombing missions were at night to North Korea, and we went as far as the Yalu River, Sinanju, right on the Red Sea, and then up to Kangi, the railroad marshalling yards across from China. And occasionally we get up far enough to see some of Manchuria. But when we'd go to Kangi, that was about a 325-mile run. And most of our missions were about 4 or 5 hours. And we were looking for locomotives and truck convoys, tank convoys, and dark nights it was sort of hard to see them. But we could see lights, and that was part of my duties as a gunner engineer. Our navigator bombardier was in the plexiglass nose of the plane, and then the pilot, and then we sat right seat, and they called us gunner engineers. In the back regular waist gun compartment, they had a radar set, Choran. So our mission never fired the gun 50 calibers over there. We had 3 50 caliber machine guns in each wing of the plane, and we could also hang 2 500-pound bombs under the wings, and then 8 500-pound bombs in the bomb bay. Or some missions we had napalm under the wings. And then about the time I was leaving in September of '51, they started going to daylight formation along the front lines mainly. And so I had 47 missions total. Supposed to have been 50, but with the change from mainly nighttime to daytime, why I didn't get to the 50.
So you said about 4-hour mission, is that 4-hour mission from takeoff to landing, or is that 4-hour mission to get to your site to come back?
It was 4 hours takeoff to coming back landing.
Okay. So, nighttime bombing, usually what time would you guys start? Would that be like 10 o'clock at night, or?
No, it was from 1800 hours to 03. 6 o'clock in the evening, someone would take off, and then about every half hour, another one would take off till 3 in the morning. And at K8, there were 3 of us bomb squadrons. So, I don't know exactly how many missions each night. Totally, I guess we had about 20 planes, and so maybe 40, 45 total missions a night for the 3 squadrons.
So a squadron was what, about 20 planes?
Yes.
And when you have 20 planes, you have a crew of about?
3.
So you have the pilot?
Navigator bombardier was combined, and then the gunner engineer.
So there's only 3 of you in that plane.
Right.
However, you also have a ground crew.
Yes.
That is very, very important.
Right.
So roughly on a plane, how many would be in the ground crew? Roughly.
I don't really know. Our main repair base was at Fukuoka, and I had the opportunity to fly with the pilot over there a couple of times and a little vacation over there while they were working and changing engines or doing something out in the plane.
So each plane had 3 on board and probably, what, 6 or 8 on the ground?
Yes, the mechanics and crew chief.
So
I don't really remember just how many there were in the squadron total.
Okay, but there's a lot of manpower to
Yes.
put a plane in the air.
Yes.
Okay, now you're going to go on your first mission. Scared?
Oh, a little bit. We did. We had one plane that had dual controls, and so I had a couple of practice rides before the first mission. But yeah, and then the first mission wasn't too bad. We didn't get shot at or and they would at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They usually had the assignments meeting where we were going that night. They had each plane scheduled for certain routes and stuff.
So a briefing.
Briefing, right.
Okay. So now getting back, you're all done with your training in the United States and you're going to Korea. You didn't fly over there, did you?
No. I reported to Camp Stoneman by San Francisco, and then about the 20th of January 52, we were going under the Golden Gate Bridge headed for Korea. We
In a
went
boat.
to Yokohama and then by train down to Miho. We went through Hiroshima and saw the destruction of the atom bomb, and that was something. But then we went from Miho to the base at Kunsan.
So you mentioned
It was a couple of weeks trip across on the troop ship. 4,000 of us.
you mentioned Hiroshima. Something that you can still remember.
Yeah.
For all these years. It's,
Yeah.
Pretty devastating, you said.
It was. Still, that many years later, 45, 52, 7 years.
Okay, so now you get to Korea. Totally different culture. New life. What were your first impressions of Korea?
Wow. Going on those training missions and seeing the huts, and a lot of people would run when we'd go over them, and others would stand there and wave to us. But and I never really got into the town of Kunsan. We were right on the sea, Yellow Sea there. So, but we had boy sons and girl sons cleaning and taking care of our barracks and that, and doing other work around the grounds. And that was something to see them, what they brought for lunch, and just them too, their clothing. And
Did you try any of the food?
kimchi.
Okay.
Not too much. No.
Wasn't really your style of food.
No.
Okay.
We had pretty good food there. We'd come back from bombing mission and have debriefing, and then we'd have steak and eggs a lot of times. And then the girls on the flight line had the donuts and coffee that we'd have every once in a while.
So there were donut dollies in Korea.
Yeah.
Okay. So you remember a few of the people in your unit at all, or that you were really close to, or?
Yes. And then after, well, several years, 94, our sister squadron, the 13th, invited us to their reunions. And so I think there were 7 of us 8th Bomb Squadron gunners that went to it in 54. And so it was great to renew old friendships. And
Okay. Now you're on your missions. Were you ever attacked on a mission, or?
we were just attacked with red balls coming up. Flak and the red balls.
The tracers?
No aerial attack. So
So you didn't run into any of their planes, just the ground fire.
right,
Okay. Your plane ever hit?
yes, small. Never lost an engine or damage too badly, but we did have minor damage in time.
Was that like from anti-aircraft, or was that shrapnel like?
Both. We made a lot of low altitude runs at the trains, naturally, in the convoys, and our squadron wasn't as bad as the 13th that had machine guns in the nose of the plane. And I think the pilots in the 13th were more tigerish too. And so they lost more planes than we did. Sometimes taking off was a problem too over the sea at the end of the runway. And at the other end of the runway was a big reservoir. So
Water.
yeah,
So when you're loaded down, that plane's pretty heavy and takes a little bit of space to take off, doesn't it?
yes, yes,
A little bit longer runway is needed.
right.
Okay. So you're on a mission. You said you mostly flew at night, so it could be from anywhere from 10 o'clock till whenever in the morning.
Right.
And your radar was what you used a lot to find your targets.
Not too much.
Okay.
Very little, I'd say. And then returning to base, we didn't have the radar and equipment they have today.
No.
So there was a go left, right a little, or higher, lower. And pretty foggy landing some nights. And then metal runway plates, they were, not the concrete or asphalt. And they would get slippery too sometimes.
And they would move.
We slide around a little.
So it's a real interesting time in your young life.
Yeah.
You're at war. And were there any casualties in your unit?
Yes, but none of my good buddies.
And most of them were lost to anti-aircraft fire, or were there?
A couple of planes went off the end of the runway into the sea, and they were gone then. And I think only while I was flying my 50, we only lost one plane to aircraft fire or damage from shrapnel from our own.
So your planes, they're not that big. They're not like you see on TV, are they?
No.
Pretty tight.
Yes.
So if you're sitting in the right seat, and I would be the pilot, we'd be shoulder to shoulder.
Well, there's some controls were there. It's yes.
Still,
Yes.
you're. It's very tight.
Yes.
Like I say, not like you see in the movies or on TV.
No.
Okay. You brought a couple of medals along. Can you explain those medals that you received, Joe?
The Air Medal I received for mainly flying. Most everyone gets one of them. The Distinguished Flying Cross, not too many received them. One mission, our crew, we destroyed and had the photo plane come in and take pictures, and it showed 13 trucks had exploded and burned. So I was advising the pilot of where we were getting aircraft fire from and watching the instruments. And so I received the Distinguished Flying Cross, which I'm very proud of.
It's quite an honor to get that, Joe. Congratulations.
Thank you, Tom.
So, what was your highest rank that you ever were when you were in the Air Force, Joe?
Just a 3-striper, Airman First Class.
Okay.
Well, after Korea, I was assigned to Salina, Kansas, and worked on B-57 bombers, B-47 bombers, sorry. And then I volunteered to go back to school for fire control systems, the radar, firing controls on the fighter planes, F-86s, F-100s, and that was in 1953, September. And then after that, I was assigned at Hamilton Air Force Base at San Rafael, California, and worked on the F-86 Super Sabre jets. At Oshkosh, on the entrance gate, there's a F-86, the Gate Guardian, they call it. And also at the Oshkosh Museum, there's a B-26 in the basement of the museum. And after I retired, I volunteered and would be at the main admissions and membership gate. For about 10 years I did that. A friend lived at Lake Winnebago, so I'd park my motorhome across the street from him, or else stay in one of their bedrooms.
Okay.
We'd go out there 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning and open up. And then in the afternoon, it'd take off and go to the air show or golf with her husband.
Okay, going back to Korea, Joe, what was your average day like in sunny Korea?
It depended if I had a bombing mission the night before. And I did spend some time typing in the personnel or orderly room, I guess they called it. And then I spent quite a bit of time with Skeet in the bomb shop. Or sometimes we could go to Tokyo on R&R, and I went, I think, 5 times to Tokyo on R&R with Skeet and other friends. So, but I didn't have to load bombs or 50 caliber ammunition, which is pretty easy. And
Okay, you said you wrote a lot of letters home.
yes.
You got a lot back. Made time
That-
easier.
and then my wife had kept all those letters, so that sort of acted as a diary when I got home in later years. So that was, I didn't really keep a diary.
But yet those letters
Yeah,
were kind of a diary.
right.
Okay. What were your living conditions like? Tent, barracks, Quonset hut?
In Korea, it was a corrugated metal building and oil heaters. It'd get pretty cold in those barracks some nights.
I was gonna say, this wasn't air.
I didn't get there until the end of January, so I may have missed some of the worst.
But you made the next January though.
Well, I did. I was only there from about January 20th, 52 to September 52.
Okay.
And so,
So the barracks were nice and cool in the summer too, right?
yeah.
Okay. Were you homesick or stressed out at all when you were over there?
No. With Skeet around, that made quite a difference, I believe. And then, I don't know, I just kept busy enough and doing things I never really got homesick or.
Go to any USO shows at all, or?
They had a couple. I don't even remember who they were, but they were pretty good. And then we'd have movies. They had a movie theater, so we'd go with that.
So it's nice to see some other Americans over there besides service people.
Right.
Okay. What were some of your good memories from over there?
Seeing, I guess just seeing some of the world and how other people had to live. Being able to serve my country, so.
Culture shock when you got over there, though, wasn't it? It's
A little bit, yes. Buffalo pulling the honey wagons. Their huts that they were living in and sanitary conditions. Yeah.
a lot different than Michigan.
Right.
Okay. So were you able to come back home and leave it all?
That Christmas '51 was about the only. And then when I returned from Korea, supposed to have been a marriage on October 4th. I landed at March Air Force Base October 4th.
Oops.
They had to delay the wedding 2 weeks. We flew home, and one of the stops for refueling was Wake Island. Well, Wake Island got hit with a typhoon, so I was in Tokyo about 2 weeks. So the wedding was rescheduled 2 weeks later, and it worked out fine.
Okay. So you're done with Korea, and you said you came back to Kansas. Was that your next duty
Salina,
station?
Kansas.
Now your enlistment was 4 years, correct?
Right.
So how much time did you spend in Kansas then?
From the October '52 to about June of '53, when I volunteered to go back to some schools, well, the fire control system school at Lowry. And while I was at Lowry, then in July of '53, the movie The Glenn Miller Story was made. And our squadron was one that marched in the Glenn Miller Story film.
Wow. So you were in
So-
Glenn Miller's story.
Right.
Yeah.
I saw June Allison, and who was the actor, up close.
You did.
Yeah.
Quite an honor.
Yes. And then I went from the Lowry out to Hamilton Air Force Base and discharged there January 7th, '55,
And where was that located?
near San Francisco, north of the Golden Gate, San Rafael,
Okay.
Hamilton Air Force Base. Not much of it there now. I've been back in that area a couple times since.
So then you get on a train and come home.
No, I bought a brand new Chevrolet in San Rafael and drove it home.
Okay.
Yes.
So you get back home. Then what direction did your life take?
Back to college. And girl I married, her father was a paper mill superintendent. And so I changed to pulp and paper making at Western Michigan College, and graduated from that then in 1958 and came up here to Wisconsin Rapids.
Consolidated Papers or?
Consolidated Papers,
Okay.
and retired in January in '94. And then I got involved more in the VFW and the Korean Veterans Association. Just last month they had a 6-page article in here about our air base at Kunsan and at Pusan on the East Coast. I could mention that in July of '52, when they were working on our runway at Kunsan, we went down to Pusan and flew out of there. And that was worse than flying out of Kunsan K-8. You took off over the Straits of Japan. The other end was mountains. So that was a little exciting too sometimes.
I bet with the wind in those mountains and that ocean kind of gave the pilot.
Right. And so I was going to our sister squadron, the 13, had invited us to their meeting in 1994 and said to continue. So in 1995, after the Bomber Squadron reunion at San Diego, 19 of us men and 13 gals went back to Seoul, Korea for 6 nights, and one of the days we returned to our base at K-8, and this was at the gate of the base at K-8, and when we were back on to see the base again. What changes there were. They had the F-16 fighter jets in, and they had Scud missiles or something, and barracks, two-tour room or something instead of the old.
Better runway?
And the better runway. And, so we saw a lot of Korea then, and after the visit there, we went to Beijing, China for 4 nights, and saw the sights there, the Wall, and Tiananmen Square, Forbidden City, and lots of other things. Really interesting.
So the area around the base that you were stationed at, had that grown up a little bit and become more modernized over the time?
Yes. When we returned for the visit at Kunsan, we had dinner downtown Kunsan. Now it's modern and a lot different.
A lot more neon.
That was in '95 even.
A little bit more neon.
Right.
When you went back there in '95, people treat you pretty good, the locals?
Yes, especially Korea. And in Korea we had a real good guide. he would volunteer information and praise us and thank us for our duties there. When we got to China, the guide was a little different. He, I thought, withheld some things and didn't make us really feel too welcome.
Okay.
And getting back to our visit in Korea, Seoul, one day we spent almost the entire day around Panmunjom, and we went in the building where the armistice was signed, and we couldn't go on the north side of the building. We had to stay on the table. You had to stay on the south side. And you could look out to the north and see North Koreans looking around the buildings and stuff. And we went down to the Freedom Bridge where the POWs returned. And one on our trip, what had been a POW for 18 months. And he said the treatment was terrible. When he saw the bridge, he really broke down. And we could understand why. He's since passed on now. And then looking off in the distance, you could see the big North Korean flag, and they were playing propaganda songs and stuff, and just seeing the hills and thinking back what all had happened there. And I was just glad that I was up in the air and not down on the ground where we could see all the fire going back and forth. And, one of the articles I always carried on the missions, my grandmother Welling, when I was confirmed, gave me a scapular medal, religious, that she'd embroidered around. And then when I left for Korea, I told her I thought I was going there. She says, "You still have that medal, don't you?" And I said, "Yes." And I had carried it in my billfold, and I always carried it in my billfold on the missions. And when those red balls were coming up, I'd say a little prayer.
So that was your good luck charm.
Yes.
Still have it?
Yes.
That's why you're 80-some years old.
Yeah.
So you get out of service, you said you went back to school. Was that under the GI Bill, or was that out of your own?
Yes, it was the GI Bill. 3.5 years. I had a year and a half other schooling, and then I changed to the pulp and paper, so I had a few extra classes. And, I was working part-time, and then working in the summers. Summer of '57, I went out to Washington State and worked for Weyerhaeuser. And that was a good summer. Another buddy, he worked up at Seattle area, so a couple of weekends we got together. And my dad came out and visited, and we went up to the mountains, Mount Rainier. We had a beautiful view of that from our place in Washington. And the reunions in 95, the Korean Monument, our reunion was there, and we were at that on July 27th, 1995. And that was the end of the war or conflict in Korea was July 27th, 1953. So that was 42 years later. And we had a good time out there at that.
I see that you went on a Never Forgotten Honor flight.
Yes,
What
that
did-
was an honor.
What did you think of the Korean memorial out there?
That was good. It had some cracks from I went on the flight 16 in May of 2014, and some of the concrete had cracked, but I remembered depicting of the rice paddy and the men marching up through the paddies, and reflecting pool and the reflecting wall with the pictures and stuff. Also enjoyed seeing the Vietnam Wall also, and all the other. That was a real long day.
Worth it?
And,
Was it worth it?
it sure was worth it. And I sponsored my youngest son to be my guardian, so he really enjoyed it too. And then we also helped another veteran from Mosinee, so that was interesting.
So would you recommend all veterans sign up and go?
Definitely, yes. The guys that went the other day, I guess it rained and some of them never got off the bus. That was too bad. We had a beautiful day, and we took many pictures, and the guys that organized and run the flight should really be commended for what they do and how they run it, and put you up at the hotel at Wausau, and then coming back afterwards, the buses, the motorcycle, alongside taking us back to the hotel. And all the people that do come up to the airport at Mosinee and see you coming back, that is very heartwarming. And the landing at Washington, D.C. is something too, seeing all the people in the airport greeting you and thanking you, and seeing all the memorials. I had, like I say, had been there for the dedication of the Korean one in 95, so I had seen most all, but it was good to see them again. So,
Your time in the military, you think that helped you later in your lifetime? What you learned in the military?
Yes. I think I became more disciplined and better work ethics. And, just seeing more of the world growing up.
Would you recommend the military to people?
I wish my sons had to have gone through some of it.
Anything else you want to add, Joe?
No. I appreciate you doing this show too, Tom.
Thank you.
I've watched it on TV, and great job, and learn more about the other veterans. You spending time doing it. It's great.
Well, I appreciate you
Thank
coming
you.
here because what you read in a book is not quite the same.
No, no. These articles are great, but doesn't tell the whole story.
Joel, thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome. And thank you very much for watching.